how you doing?
I've lumped these 2 points together because chronologically, the Elites being an enemy faction was the first thing that threw me out of the game, and you are required to read books to understand why this, among many other things in this game, is even happening. When transferring mediums, you must establish your world from the ground up. When you go into The Lord of the Rings, you're not required to read the trilogy beforehand. When I watched Arcane, I knew absolutely nothing about League of Legends, but I understood the world and characters thoroughly. On the flip side, the Halo TV show wants to do its own timeline while doing no world building of its own. The creators of that show absolutely rely on the viewer knowing things about Halo from the games and books. Replaying Halo 4 and making this video has me thinking back to my first time ever playing the game. When Halo 4 released, I was in basic training. I didn't play Halo 4 until late 2013 or early 2014. I had no idea some new developers were put in charge by Microsoft to carry Halo on because Bungie had left. I was the type of guy that was completely unaware of what was going on in the industry, and I didn't really care either. I had other shit to worry about. I had finally gotten settled into my barracks, started my job, and set aside some time to start gaming again. I bought Halo 4 and was super excited to see what was next for the Master Chief and Cortana. Being a Halo superfan since I was a child, and not having consumed any Halo media in about 2 years. Wait, hang on a second, let's go back. So this Elite's initial course of action was to approach the Master Chief cloaked, with a sword drawn. And then, for whatever reason, even though he's about to swing down at Master Chief's head, while Master Chief is in a vulnerable position, he decloaks himself, even though he could strike him with a cloak. His goal is to kill the thing in front of him and survive the encounter, right? So why did he just say, hey man, here I am, you can go ahead and kill me now? That was just stupid.
I thought we had a truce with the Covenant.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I also don't remember them looking like that, but that's besides the point. What's going on, Master Chief?
A lot can happen in 4 years. Either way, he's probably not alone. We should be careful.
I sure hope we're going to get more on that, since the Elite Human Alliance was such a critical and beloved part of Halo. I really hope they dedicate a lot of time to explaining why we're fighting Elites again. In any case, let's carry on with the review. I can remember how hyped I felt when Cortana said,
I need you.
And the Chad himself wakes up. That excitement was immediately squashed the second I had to throw an Elite down an elevator shaft and then waltz into the next room and assassinate another one. What the fuck? Why am I killing an Elite right now? We had an alliance with them, and it's only been 5 years, right? The last interaction we saw between an Elite and a human was this incredible handshake.
I remember how this war started, what your kind did to mine. I can't forgive you, but you have my thanks for standing by him to the end. Hard to believe he's dead.
Were it so easy?
This immediately sucked me out of the game because I am a huge fan of the Elite Human Alliance. It's part of the reason I adore the Bungie games and can praise Halo 2 to no end. Well, I didn't find out until years later, because I never used to get involved with meta information, that you needed to read some good old Halo books from 343 to understand just what in the hell is going on. To this day, I still haven't, nor will I ever read their stuff, because they've taken an awesome sci-fi world and made it incredibly lame. However, I did get some info by reading Reddit threads and chatting with some people that there were many smaller factions of elites, and this faction didn't fuck with the Arbiter. Led by this Jewel Madama guy, who isn't the main antagonist by the way, they wanted to continue fighting humanity because he presumed the humans would want to fight them anyways. I guess some other factions still believe in the great lie of the Covenant, but whatever. That information was not given to the player, why would any of that matter? I'm bringing this up to talk about how they could have made this stuff work, but because the information wasn't in the game, it is a major world-building flaw. Narratively, it would have made way more sense if we got a really long intro cutscene, just like in Halo 2, explaining the state of the universe. We could have been introduced to this Jewel Madama and understood why we're fighting this faction of elites despite the truce. We could have gotten some development for this side character that should have been the main antagonist, the same way we did for Truth and Tartarus. The Halo 2 cutscenes are a masterclass in world building. The new developers should have taken notes from their predecessors. I suppose they were blinded by Halo's majesty.
Blinded?
Instead, we got none of that. I think I remember 343 stating that you don't need to read the books to enjoy the games. But that is an utter lie. Unless they mean from a multiplayer perspective, but that would be a very stupid thing to say. Gamers should not be required to read a trilogy of books to understand the game's story they are currently playing. The Bungie Halo games did not rely on novelizations to portray to the player the story. The books were there if you wanted extra information, but they were not required. 343 went the opposite way, where the books are now required to understand the story we're telling in the games. It is actually extremely mind-boggling to me that anybody on the creative team at 343 Industries decided that this was a good idea. It is a video game franchise, for one, but it wouldn't even make sense for movies. Could you imagine if you were on the hype train after A New Hope, and then you were going to go watch The Empire Strikes Back? And you didn't know anything because the internet didn't really exist back then, so you go sit down in the theater and then this big black screen pops up with white text that says, "I sure hope you read the required homework before you came to this movie. If not, the people who did read it are going to call you stupid for not knowing the stuff." And if Lucasfilm comes out and says, "You don't actually need to read the books to understand the story," when you very clearly do, the people defending this decision are just going to appeal to the meta and say, "Lucasfilm said that you don't need to read the books, so you don't." Well, that's not really how it works, because, circling all the way back to Halo 4, why the fuck are we fighting elites? Well, if you went a couple years without gaming because, you started your adult life and you went and started a career or went into the military or went to college and started partying and drinking and gaming wasn't really a top priority for you, and then you're like, holy shit, the new Halo game's out, I should pick that up, and you go in and you have to assassinate an elite, you're gonna say, what the actual fuck? I didn't sign up for this. You didn't want this. You didn't ask for this. But suddenly, you're fighting elites again. It doesn't make any sense. And we're not getting into Halo 5 today. The weird thing, and the worst thing, is that they required more reading to get into Halo 5's story. And now that we're all the way up to Halo Infinite, they just ditched pretty much the entire story of Halo 4 and 5 and made Infinite. Infinite. A way to save time. That was a weird blooper. But I think we just figured something out together. Halo Infinite. Infinite. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's get back to Halo 4. What I would assume is 343 really wanted to hit Halo fans with the member berries in this intro cutscene rather than develop the current state of the universe. They wanted the camera floating through the destroyed dawn, with the muddled voice of Cortana desperately trying to wake the Master Chief up. They wanted to hit us with the inverse of Chief telling Cortana, "Wake me when you need me." They wanted Cortana to say the line, "I need you." Mind you, this cutscene is shot beautifully and is extremely immersive, but from a storytelling perspective, it tells us nothing about why the broken ship is under attack. They went for spectacle and nostalgia rather than explaining just what the hell is going on. Kind of reminds me of a certain other movie. The thing is, you could have made this work. If you wanted to have Cortana say the line and shoot the cutscene the exact same way, you could have put the Jewel Madama cutscene beforehand to assist in telling your story. You could have had a scene following the destruction of the Covenant and Jewel Madama taking command of the remaining forces. Not sure where the brutes are in this game, but let's not get hung up on that. During a conversation between Jewel and his lieutenants, he could explicitly say that they need to find and kill the demon to aid in their war against humanity. Once that cutscene is over, you then hard cut to the intro cutscene as it is, and the player understands why there is a faction of elites trying to kill you, so it isn't a surprise when you assassinate the first elite. You could have had the nostalgia and spectacle of that scene while also giving us all the information we needed to start the game. I don't know why they did it, but it seems that every time we get introduced to something new in the 343 universe, you need to have read something to get it at all. Oh, but don't worry, gamer. We'll start kind of explaining what's going on with a bunch of in-game dialogue between John and Cortana. Now, Chief never used to talk during gameplay, ever. But now we're using that tactic to explain story elements while climbing elevator shafts and fighting enemies. Don't miss what they're talking about, or you might be even more confused. I am fine with Chief talking in-game. That's not really something to get hung up on as a negative. but they absolutely should not be putting chungously important narrative points in-game dialogue. You're focusing on too much while trying to hear what they're saying.
If you are trying to convey to the player a massive shift in the state of affairs in your universe, you should allow the player to watch a proper cutscene like that in Halo 2. Halo 1 to Halo 2 was a major shift in the state of affairs of the universe, and they didn't confuse the player by having in-game dialogue to explain why we're playing as the Arbiter all of a sudden.
If you look up a YouTube video of all of the Halo 4 cutscenes, there has to be, and are, many parts of the video with gameplay footage, because so much of what is being said during gameplay is relevant to the story. That's absolutely ridiculous. Unlike the Halo 2 cutscenes, which a lot of people go to YouTube to watch, all of the Halo 2 Blur cutscenes are just cutscenes. With that, Halo 4 is kicking off a completely different story that goes in a direction most were not expecting, so this could just add to the confusion. Why not just make a longer, more substantive cutscene? Oh, because that would be a good idea, and 343 is notorious for making terrible decisions. To end this section on required reading, it would have been wise for the developers to give the players the necessary information they needed to take in the story of the game. Halo isn't like Call of Duty. Most, not all, but most do not buy Halo and completely disregard the campaign for the multiplayer. Halo has a fun multiplayer, but the Bungie Halo games told a really awesome story. People care a lot about these characters and the universe. I'm sure there is a lot of information regarding other characters or events from the Kilo 5 books or whatever else 343 assigned for pre-game homework, but the only part I cared to look into was the elites. We're going raw for the rest of the video, and just to restate, me throwing in random tidbits from the 343 required reading was just to explain what they did and how they could have made it narratively work. It is a major flaw to require your players to read a series of novels to understand the continued story of a video game franchise.